Nation of Fit in 10, welcome to day 42, and we are officially into, well, starting tomorrow we are officially into the final month of Fit in 10, the final 4 weeks. Of course, still just over the halfway point. And next week we have our scans coming up, of course, right? Make sure you book your scan, www.calendly.com/trainonmain. Friday and Saturday next week, we are running the scans, November 18th and 19th. So if you haven't booked your scan, please make sure you do. Yesterday, I talked about what is more beneficial for fat loss. Is it cardiovascular training or is it weight training? Of course, why not do both? But when it comes to long-term fat loss, I believe that weight training is, and I say I believe because there's data to support either of the arguments. Obviously, we have to look at how much weight training we're doing, intensity, everything. There are many pieces of this that we need to look at, many nuances to weight training that we need to look at and clarify. But in general, let's just keep it basic. Weight training versus cardio. Now, let's just review just quickly here the four reasons the four things that weight training will give you that you're not going to get from cardio. So number one was muscle mass and metabolism. So if we're building more muscle mass, muscle is the most metabolically intensive tissue in the body. So the more of this that we have, the more calories we're going to consume on a daily basis. So that's number one. Number two, we also have an increase in metabolism from all the stuff that happens after we weight train. Okay, so essentially we're creating some level of muscular damage, some level of hormone disruption, some level of a fuel storage that needs to be essentially refueled, aka glycogen in the muscles and the liver, and some other things. So it takes time for this to happen and extra energy. All right, so we've got the increased metabolic, we've got the increase in metabolism post-training for a short window or a short period of time, 24 to 72 hours. So if we continue to train, we're going to continue to have that short window of increased metabolic rate. Number three, not only are we just building muscle, we're also building ligament, tendon. There's bone remodeling happening. That is, we're getting more dense bones. All of this requires, and I can't forget nervous system, all this requires, again, extra energy. All right, so it's not just muscle mass, but there's the rebuilding of these other components of the body. We can call this, other components, other lean body mass components. And number four, we've got the release of exerkines, right? These messaging molecules essentially that leave muscle cells and go towards fat cells and literally cause lipolysis or breakdown of fat from the fat cells. Now, when it comes to cardio, of course, we've got different kinds of cardio. And I will say that if we're doing some sort of high intensity interval training, which I have you guys do for cardio, there is going to be some level of EPOC, some of that excessive post-oxygen consumption, just a fancy way of saying that basically the body's going to consume a little more oxygen post high-intensity cardio, and this is going to have an elevation in your metabolism, very similar to what the weight training will do. Not on that length of scale, of course, maybe for a couple hours you'll get it. So there is some advantage with that, with some extra fat burning. But really what we're doing cardio, whether it's low intensity, high intensity, is we're just trading time for energy in the moment. Okay, so there's not really any investment in terms of fat loss other than what we're trading in for that period of time. But let's not forget, obviously, with cardio too, there's going to be some circulatory benefits, some benefits to improving your respiratory capacity. Okay, your capacity to not just take oxygen in, but to disperse oxygen around the body. So we can basically get more cardiovascularly fit by practicing cardio. So this is important, not just fat burning, of course. So there are these things to consider, but the big difference here with the weight training, the big difference is, of course, that investment in lean body mass, and this is what's going to allow us to, especially if we're accumulating more lean body mass over time, to have a heightened metabolic rate, and also for training regularly over time, we are going to see that heightened metabolism post-training for a number of days, right? So if we're always training, let's say every second day, our body's always recuperating, we're always in a heightened metabolic state. Okay, and let's not forget that we are going to burn calories when we're weight training, of course. All right, we're burning energy. So the more intense that you're training, so let's talk. Actually, let me just quickly mention a couple things that will increase the amount of calories expended when you're weight training. Moving at a quicker rate is going to, so getting more done in a unit of time, obviously going to burn more calories. Doing these large compound movements at a pretty high intensity, meaning, in that 70 to 90% range of your 1 rep max. Things like squats, deadlifts, rows, perhaps presses where we're really pushing the limit. You're going to get an a huge elevation in your heart rate. So you may have experienced this if you're in class and you're doing sets of 10 on squats. When you're going with a weight that's very hard for 10 reps, when you finish those 10 reps, it's like, holy crap, your heart rate is probably 140, 150 or something like that. Okay, depending on your age and how hard you go. So, you're also burning calories in the moment when you're weight training. All right. And as I mentioned, with myself, this is obviously one of the more extreme things, but the estimation on calories that I burn when I do a leg training session is in the neighborhood of, depending on what I do for legs, it's in the neighborhood of 1,100 to 1,300 calories. That is one session. So, not only am I burning all those calories, but I'm getting all the after effects, right? Okay, so just something to consider. Of course, you guys do both, and I think they're both important. So, some food for thought. Let's get the message of the day here. And this goes for any of you who are struggling with any piece of this challenge. And really, sometimes you might, this happens to me a lot, especially if I don't want to do something, I'll end up thinking about it for a while, and I'll think about it, and I'll put it off, and I'll think about it. I'm sure we all do this. But sometimes you just have to get going to get going. Sometimes you just have to be like, I've talked about this before, I'm not going to think about it, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to get up and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to quit fighting it because I know I have to do it, and I'm just going to do it. And the one thing that I've suggested for this is doing whatever it is that you struggle with, do it first thing in the morning. All right, so if it's food prep, do it first thing in the morning. If it's cardio, do it first thing in the morning. All right, if you got multiple things, well, maybe one day do say you're struggling with food prep, do it one day. And then the next day, if you're struggling, with cardio, right, do cardio that day. All right, so, but your level of, I'm going to use the word motivation here, is going to be the highest in the morning. You'll feel it'll be the easiest for you to do whatever you don't like doing first thing in the morning. Trust me, 100%. Just try it, okay? Sometimes you got to just get going to get going. You just got to start, and that will get you going. All right, positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, for the love of God, give some gratitude. And stay tuned for your new numbers tomorrow.